Okay, so I'm working on putting my first strike miniatures together, and got a gap on either side. So I wanted to use my liquid green stuff to make it smooth. But my liquid green stuff is thick. So I got this dried liquid green stuff. It should say lumpy, thick green stuff. And I hear you just add water and presto. So I'm going to use my molder to pick some out and mix it with water. So I ended up filling these two spots with hot water. Now I'm going to cut this and try it here first, just a little, and then I'll probably end up using more green stuff than water. The thing is, you're going to need a couple layers. The thinner it is, the more layers you're going to need, and then you'll also want to paint it around. Okay, so we'll use a tiny bit here, and we'll use a bigger bit here. I'll use this as a palette knife. Okay, so that right there is too thin. That's gonna take a lot of layers and a lot of dry time in between. There we go. So if this works out, you can just reconstitute it with water. I know a lot of people exchange, refund, or throw out their liquid green stuff that it's not working anymore. Let's get a palette brush in there. Turns to milk and makes it butter. Turns to milk and makes it butter. Turns to milk and makes it butter. That's from Butt Crack. Add a little more. There we go. It's actually starting to look like liquid green stuff. The color isn't really losing. We just need to find the right consistency so that it mixes together. Okay, I'm gonna try and wipe this off. Well, we did it. Found a big chunk. Oops. Now there's too much. We don't want to lose any of the design. So we'll come back later after it's dried. And then we got the other side is what it looked like before. Just get in here closer. Perfect. Thanks. Okay. So I don't think it's fully dry. It's been a half an hour. Maybe I added too much water. I can kind of peel it off. I can rub it off. Maybe because it's not fully dry, but I mean it should harden. But once you paint it, it should be pretty much ready to go. So let's go ahead and add the second coat. That is a bad gap. I've seen some guy, I think he uses bicarbonate soda and super glue to do his. I think he did, I think it's actually supposed to be baking soda. He'll super glue it and add baking soda. It's kind of white powder to his. You can clearly see that line still there. On some of it, it would scratch off pretty easily, but where it was thicker, it's harder to pull. So I'm going to try and make a even more thicker consistency and try and get in there. I just know that by the time I paint it, it'll work out. But another thing I noticed is that I may not need to use the green stuff until I put the arms on. Let me find one. Okay, so I did this guy yesterday, and you'll notice that there's still some lines, but once I put his arms on, it wasn't as noticeable. So there, I would have to paint less, put less green stuff on there. See a little bit of the line here, but not as awful as you could see it here. Let's check his collar. See, you can see some lines here that I'll have to fill up, but I don't have to do as much of the area as I did with the other one before. So maybe I should just go ahead and glue them all together and then worry about doing the more layers. Anything that saves you time. Okay, so I ended up and paint and supplies. Making this kind of consistency for my liquid green stuff. Now I can make textures, and it does harden. The thicker it is, the more layers you put on. I just dropped a minifigure. So this will end up being more of a texture now. A couple rock spots that you can paint later. We can use it to texture, add, fill in gaps. I apparently will end up having this bottle for a very long time. So there it is, dried. Like a... people call it butter. Like cold butter out of the refrigerator. And I just end up taking some. I use my mold. But you can use... I switch between my mold remover and the bottom of a brush. So we'll just add a little... Well, I actually I always end up adding a lot of water at first to help reconstitute it. I'll put in the water first. I'll just use a napkin of some sort to siphon off any extra. And if you want it thinner, just add more water. Then to the water, I add my mold. So we can tell that there's a lot of water in there, so I'll just start siphoning it off before I mix it anymore. Ended up taking too much water, but I think it'll be just fine. It takes about, I mean, I might add just, try and go for a little bit of water. Try not to siphon up so much. Yeah. And let me show you some of the models that I've finished with.